from yesterday because, like, speaking of a small ball team, right, their defense was really good yesterday.
Yep.
Like, what did you take away from that you can say, like, this is why small ball can work at different levels?
I think it's, small ball is here to stay. I read a tweet last night from Draymond Green where, he basically tweeted that, a lot of the fives in the NBA right now are probably rooting for the Lakers. Unless your name is Jokic or, Anthony Davis, Karl Towns. I think the Rockets have proven that, you can win playing real small. I don't think they've played a guy over 6'7" since like December. 5 years ago, that would have been impossible to believe in the NBA. I just think as a whole, the basketball in the bubble has been incredibly, incredibly good. And I've had a lot of conversations with different people about why that is. But my takeaways are, what's going on with the NBA right now in the bubble. It reminds me a lot of like, Peach Jam. You played in Peach Jam, and I feel like through the years historically, guys have like played their best basketball of their life at Peach Jam, and I think the reason why for that is, you think about what happens in Peach Jam, right? You play 2 games a day, but your downtime, it's just so micromanaged. You're taking care of your body, you're off your feet, you're in your room, you're eating pretty well, you're not traveling, there's no distractions. So, I think a lot of that has been true in the NBA, where you take the best players in the world, and you've obviously asked them to make big sacrifices away from their families. And, I think the byproduct of that has been, just really, really, really well played basketball at the highest possible level.
Yeah, something I also pointed out too that I've noticed is that you're not having that travel time between, let's say you're playing game 2 to game 3, right? The players
Right.
aren't as tired. Like, people were saying, the Rockets would be exhausted coming into game 1. But if you really have that, I feel like the mental toughness piece, right, that kind of allows that. And there's no travel, doesn't really make a huge difference. I was wondering also just what you thought about the Steve Nash hire. Obviously, I'm not looking really to get into like that optic stuff that they were talking about on ESPN. Just like the fact from a basketball standpoint, how you feel about that hire, because you're from, you're from Staten Island, but the Brooklyn Nets, the New York Knicks are the teams around our area. So how do you feel about Steve Nash as a hire?
I think it's very much outside the box. I'm a pretty big Steve Nash fan. I've loved following his career and, following him post-retirement. I know he's a guy that, spent a lot of time in New York. I think he lives in New York now, like plays soccer Saturday mornings. And I think it's outside the box, but I think it's got a lot of potential. I think there's been situations like Steve Nash's hiring that have worked out pretty well. You think about Steve Kerr, getting the Warriors job 7 years ago. He's had a lot of success with that. You think about Jason Kidd, who, took over the Brooklyn Nets when they had Deron Williams and Joe Johnson, Pierce and Garnett, towards the end of their careers. I think there's a lot of potential for it. He's one of the greatest point guards of all time. He's got one of the best basketball minds of all time. And he obviously had a pretty big impact on KD, in their time together in Golden State. So, I think it's a high risk, high reward type of a hire. So I'm excited to, kind of watch how it plays out. Now, I'm a long suffering Knicks fan, so, we'll see. But I think it's outside the box. I think obviously it's kind of dominated the headlines here over the last couple days, but he's a legend, and I think he's cut out for it.
Last thing I wanted to talk about before we wrap up is, what have you been doing, not just from like a coaching standpoint to get your team prepared, but like, what have you been doing during this time to keep yourself kind of focused and motivated and all that kind of stuff when everything right now in the world is pretty uncertain?
Yep. I think the best thing we have as college coaches is synergy, because you can spend a lot of time, watching your film and breaking it down, watching other teams. So for me, it's just been a lot of film stuff and, preparing for this year ahead where, I think if things go really well, I think we'll have an opportunity to play at some point. So, really trying to, obviously like everybody else, stay healthy, stay safe, make sure my players, my student athletes are healthy and safe. They're back on campus now. They just wrapped up their first week of classes. So, for me, it's like everybody else. It's been a challenging time, not being around the guys for 5 months, but we've had a bunch of Zoom meetings and Microsoft Teams meetings. So just staying in touch with guys, staying on top of everything, and again, watching a lot of film from last year to plan ahead for this year, because I think our roster is, it's a little different than it was last year. So as far as style of play goes, we may have to tweak some things, we may have to change some things. So just kind of, always planning ahead.
Well, Coach, I want to thank you for your time. If you like that clip, like and subscribe to hear more from Shred Takes podcast show, and be in touch for more stuff coming up weekly.